When my wife left, she said, "You'll never manage with the kids alone." 2 years later, her daughter asked me to walk her down the aisle. I met Veronica when her daughter Riley was 13, all braces and attitude, convinced I was just another temporary boyfriend. Her twin brother Mason treated me like furniture. Their biological father had vanished when they were 6, leaving nothing but child support checks that arrived like clockwork, but never included a phone call. Veronica and I married when the twins turned 15. I moved into their house, renovated the basement, and tried to be the fun stepdad who didn't overstep. I drove them to soccer practice and debate tournaments. I learned Riley liked her coffee with way too much creamer, and Mason needed exactly 7 minutes of silence before morning conversation. Then Veronica started working late, then later. Then overnight business trips every week. I'd text her photos of the kids' achievements, Riley's acceptance to state debate finals, Mason's first varsity goal. She'd respond with emojis hours later. One evening, I came home early from work and found her suitcases in the hallway. The twins sat on the couch, faces blank with shock. "I'm done playing house," she said, not even looking at them. "You can have them. You seem to enjoy it more than I ever did." I stood there, keys still in my hand, trying to process what was happening. "Mom, what?" Riley started. "You'll figure it out," Veronica cut her off. "You're almost adults anyway." She looked at me with something close to pity. "You'll never manage with the kids alone. They're exhausting. I should know." Then she left, just walked out and drove away. The twins were 16. Legally, she could do it, and she did. Those first months were chaos. Riley stopped eating regularly. Mason punched holes in his bedroom wall. I took emergency custody, enrolled in online parenting courses, and learned to French braid hair through YouTube videos at 2 in the morning. Slowly, we became a family, just the 3 of us. I taught Riley how to drive. Mason and I built a deck together, barely speaking but somehow communicating perfectly. We created new traditions: Friday night pizza and terrible horror movies, Sunday morning pancakes with too much syrup. Veronica sent cards on birthdays and Christmas. No phone calls, no visits, just cards with generic messages and checks we never cashed. Riley graduated top of her class. Mason got a soccer scholarship. They both called me dad now. Not just around friends, but naturally, like they'd forgotten I wasn't. Last month, Riley showed up at the house with her boyfriend Theo. They'd been dating for 3 years, since college. She was radiant in a way that made my chest tight. "Dad, can we talk?" she asked, and I knew something big was coming. They sat across from me in the living room I'd repainted 4 times to get the right shade of blue. "Theo proposed," Riley said, showing me the ring. "We're getting married next spring." I hugged her, genuinely happy. Then she said the words that broke something open in my chest. "I want you to walk me down the aisle. You're the only father I've ever really had." The wedding planning consumed our house. Riley was methodical. Spreadsheets, color swatches, seating charts. Mason would be a groomsman. I'd wear the suit Riley picked out. Then yesterday, Riley came home from meeting with the venue coordinator, her face pale. "They asked about my parents," she said quietly, "for the invitations, for the seating chart. And I realized I have to decide." "Decide what?" I asked. "Whether to invite her." Riley's voice cracked. "The venue needs final numbers, and Mom texted me this morning." She showed me her phone. A message from Veronica I hadn't known existed. "Congratulations on your engagement. I'd love to be part of your special day." Riley looked at me with tears streaming down her face. "I don't know what to do. She left us, but she's still my mother. And now there's something else. Something I just found out that changes everything." "What did you find out?" I asked. Riley handed me her phone, opened to an email. The message was from a lawyer's office in Denver. I had to read it twice before the words made sense. "Your mother is contesting the custody arrangement. She's claiming abandonment wasn't voluntary, that she was suffering from severe postpartum depression that went untreated for years. She wants shared custody reinstated." I looked up at Riley. "When did you get this?" 3 days ago. Her hands were shaking. "The lawyer says because Mason and I are over 18 now, it doesn't matter legally. But she's threatening to sue for emotional damages. She says you manipulated her into leaving and poisoned us against her." The room tilted slightly. "That's insane," I said. "She walked out. She chose to leave." "I know." Riley collapsed onto the couch. "But her lawyer is saying she has medical records, therapy notes from after she left, emails to her sister talking about how overwhelmed she was, how she felt trapped." Mason appeared in the doorway. I hadn't heard him come in. "How long have you known?" he asked Riley. "Since Tuesday." I didn't want to say anything until I figured out what to do. Mason sat down hard on the arm of the couch. "What does she want?" Riley pulled up another message. "She wants to come to the wedding. She wants to walk me down the aisle with Dad. She's saying if we refuse, she'll make a scene." Her lawyer hinted they'd contact wedding vendors, claim we're excluding her from major family events as part of a pattern of alienation. "She can't do that," I said, but my voice sounded uncertain even to me. "Her lawyer thinks she can." Riley's eyes were red. "They're calling it parental alienation, saying you took advantage of her mental health crisis to replace her. The thing about anger is that it doesn't always come hot. Sometimes it arrives cold and calculated, settling into your bones like ice." "What do you want to do?" I asked Riley. "This is your wedding, your choice." She looked at me with the same expression she'd had at 16 when I taught her to parallel park, terrified but trusting. "I want to call her bluff," Riley said quietly. "I want to invite her to the wedding. I want her to show up and see exactly what she walked away from. And then I want her to watch you walk me down that aisle alone." Mason nodded slowly. "I like it." "You sure?" I asked. "If she comes, it could get ugly." "She made it ugly 6 years ago," Riley said. "We're just finishing what she started." The next week felt like preparing for battle. Riley's lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Chen who specialized in family law, reviewed Veronica's claims and laughed. She's got nothing, Patricia said during our meeting. Depression doesn't excuse abandonment, and you can't claim alienation when you voluntarily removed yourself from their lives for 6 years. But the emails, Riley started, are her trying to rewrite history. Patricia leaned forward. I've seen this before. Parent leaves, feels guilty later, constructs a narrative where they're the victim. The medical records will show she was treated for depression, sure, but it won't show anyone forced her to leave or prevented her from maintaining contact. So we're safe? Mason asked. Legally, yes. Emotionally? Patricia gave us a sympathetic look. That's harder to protect against. We sent Veronica a formal invitation to the wedding, Riley's idea. The response came 2 days later, a effusive text about how much it meant to her, how proud she was, how she couldn't wait to celebrate this milestone together as a family. Riley stared at the message for a long time before showing it to me. She really thinks she can just show up and pretend the last 6 years didn't happen, she said. Some people are good at rewriting their own stories, I replied. The next few months were a strange balance of wedding preparation and emotional landmines. Riley threw herself into planning, choosing flowers, tasting cakes, addressing invitations in her careful handwriting. But I'd catch her sometimes, staring at nothing, and I knew she was thinking about her mom. One night, about 2 months before the wedding, I found Riley in the garage. She was sitting on the floor next to the boxes of old photos I'd packed away years ago. Looking for something specific? I asked. She held up a picture. Remember this? It was from a school play when Riley was 14. She was dressed as a tree in the background while Mason had the lead role. Veronica wasn't in the photo, but I was, sitting in the front row with a ridiculous proud dad grin. You came to everything, Riley said, even when it was just me standing in the background being tree number 3. You were an excellent tree. She didn't smile. Mom missed that play. She said she had a work thing, but I saw her Facebook that night. She was at a wine bar with her friends. Riley, I'm not trying to trash her, she interrupted. I'm trying to understand, because part of me wants to believe her lawyer's story, that she was sick and overwhelmed and didn't know what else to do. Do you believe it? Riley was quiet for a long time. I think she was probably depressed. I think being a parent was probably harder than she expected. But I also think she made a choice. And she kept making that choice every day for 6 years. She stood up, dusting off her jeans. You made a choice too. You chose to stay. The week before the wedding, Veronica called Riley directly. Not a text, an actual phone call. Riley put it on speaker. Sweetheart, I was thinking about the ceremony. Veronica's voice was warm, familiar in a way that made my stomach hurt. I'd love to say a few words. Maybe during the reception? I could talk about watching you grow up, share some memories. Riley's face was carefully blank. The reception schedule is pretty packed. Oh, I'm sure we could make room. It's traditional for the mother of the bride to speak. And I have so many stories about when you were little. Like what? Riley's voice was sharper now. A pause. Well, like, there was that time you learned to ride a bike. And your first day of kindergarten. I learned to ride a bike when I was 7. You and Dad were already separated. Another pause, longer this time. I meant, I have photos from that time. I was thinking about it recently. You weren't there, Riley said flatly. Dad taught me. You were at a work conference in Miami. He sent you videos and you responded with a thumbs up emoji 3 days later. Silence on the line. Riley, I know I wasn't perfect. You weren't there at all. Riley's hands were clenched so tight her knuckles were white. After you left, did you know I used to check your social media every day? I saw you at concerts, restaurants, hiking trips. You were fine, you were happy, and we were falling apart. I was trying to survive. So were we. Riley's voice cracked. I was 16 years old having panic attacks in school bathrooms because I didn't know if Dad could afford to keep the house. Mason started failing classes because he couldn't concentrate. And you were posting selfies with wine glasses talking about self-care journeys. That's not fair, Veronica said, and I could hear tears in her voice. You don't know what I was going through internally. You're right, Riley said. I don't. Because you never told us. You just left. She hung up. We sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, Riley looked at me. I don't want her at the wedding. Are you sure? I'm sure. She wiped her eyes. I was trying to be the bigger person, trying to prove I could be gracious, but I don't want her there. This day is about the family I have, not the mother I wish I'd had. What about her lawyer? The threats? Riley's smile was hard. Let her try. Patricia said we have every right to revoke an invitation, and if she shows up anyway, we'll have security remove her. The next morning, Riley sent a formal email through Patricia. Short and clean. After consideration, we've decided to keep the wedding intimate and limited to those who have been actively present in our lives. We wish you well. Veronica's response came within an hour. Pages of text about betrayal and manipulation and how she'd see us in court. Patricia forwarded it to the judge handling the custody dispute with a note. Exhibit A, emotional manipulation and harassment. The case was dismissed 2 weeks later. The night before the wedding, Mason and Riley and I sat on the deck we'd built together 3 years ago. We weren't talking much, just existing in the same space like we'd learned to do. I'm nervous, Riley admitted finally. About tomorrow? I asked. About everything after. She looked at me. What if I'm like her? What if I get married and have kids and realize I don't actually want any of it? Mason snorted. You're nothing like her. How do you know? Because when things got hard, you didn't run, he said. Remember freshman year of college when you hated your roommate and wanted to transfer? You stuck it out. You figured it out. That's what you do. Riley was quiet for a moment. I'm scared I inherited something broken from her. You know what you inherited from her? I asked. Her DNA. That's it. Everything else. Your kindness, your strength, your ability to show up for people. That's all you. You built that yourself. We built it together, Riley corrected. All 3 of us. The wedding day was perfect in the way that nothing actually perfect ever is. The weather cooperated. Sunny but not too hot. The flowers arrived on time. The The string quartet didn't get lost, but Riley's hands shook as I helped her with her necklace. Mason kept checking his phone like he expected disaster to arrive as a text message. "She's not coming," I told them both. "Security has her photo. If she tries to show up, they'll stop her at the door." "What if she makes a scene outside?" Riley asked. "Then we'll handle it." I squeezed her shoulder. "Together, like we always do." The ceremony was small, just 50 people. All of them folks who'd actually been part of our lives. Riley's college roommate was the maid of honor. Mason stood on Theo's side, looking uncomfortable in his suit but grinning anyway. I waited in the back of the venue with Riley, listening to the music start. "You ready?" I asked. She took a deep breath. "I've been ready for this my whole life. Just didn't know it would be with you." Walking her down that aisle was surreal. I kept thinking about the angry 13-year-old who'd slammed doors and rolled her eyes at everything I said. The 16-year-old who'd sobbed in my arms the night her mom left. The 18-year-old who'd called me dad for the first time without being prompted. When we reached the front and the officiant asked who gives this bride, I said the traditional words, but Riley grabbed my hand before I could sit down. "Wait," she said, turning to face the crowd. "I need to say something." Theo looked confused but supportive. Mason was grinning like he knew what was coming. "Most little girls dream about their wedding day and imagine their father walking them down the aisle," Riley said, her voice clear and strong. "I used to have those dreams too, but the man in my dreams was never very clear. Just a presence, someone who was supposed to be there but never quite was." She turned to me. "And then when I was 13, my mom started dating this guy. I thought he'd be like all the others. Temporary, trying too hard, gone before I learned his middle name." A few people laughed softly, but he stayed. When my mom left, he stayed. When I was impossible and angry and pushing everyone away, he stayed. He learned to braid my hair from YouTube videos. He taught me parallel parking, even though I almost crashed into a mailbox 6 times. He showed up to every college event, every holiday, every random Tuesday when I called crying about a bad grade. My throat was tight. "He's not my biological father," Riley continued, "but he's the only dad I've ever really known. And I need everyone here to understand. This isn't about being the bigger person or following tradition. This is about recognizing the parent who actually showed up, the one who chose us every single day." She looked back at me, tears streaming down her face. "I love you, Dad. Thank you for teaching me what a father is supposed to be." I pulled her into a hug, not caring that we were in the middle of a ceremony or that people were crying. When we finally separated, I sat down next to Mason, who was wiping his eyes and trying to pretend he wasn't. The ceremony was beautiful. Theo cried during his vows. Riley's voice only shook once. When they kissed, the whole room erupted in applause. At the reception, Mason gave a speech that was somehow both hilarious and moving. He told stories about our early days as a family, how I'd tried to cook them dinner that first week and nearly burned the kitchen down, how I'd stayed up until 2 a.m., helping him with college applications, how I'd driven 4 hours to watch him play in a soccer tournament, even though he'd barely gotten off the bench. "A lot of people have dads," Mason said, looking directly at me. "Not everyone has a father. There's a difference. And we got lucky enough to find the real thing even though he wasn't there from the start." Riley's college roommate gave a speech about how Riley talked about our family like it was the most natural thing in the world. How she'd say things like, "My dad taught me," or "my brother and I," without any of the usual complicated qualifiers people use for step relationships. "She just calls you her family," the roommate said, "because that's what you are." During the father-daughter dance, Riley rested her head on my shoulder like she used to do when she was small and tired. "Do you regret it?" she asked quietly, "staying with us after she left?" "Not for a single second," I said. "You two are the best thing that ever happened to me, even when we were terrible teenagers. Especially then." She laughed, then got serious again. "Do you think she'll ever understand what she missed?" I thought about that for a moment. I think understanding and accepting are 2 different things. She might someday understand what she walked away from, but people like your mom, they're really good at making themselves the victim in their own story. She'll probably spend the rest of her life believing she had no choice. That's sad. It is, I agreed, but it's not your responsibility to fix her or make her feel better about her choices. I know. Riley pulled back to look at me. I used to think something was wrong with me, that I wasn't enough to make her want to stay. "Riley, I know now that's not true," she interrupted, "because you stayed. You chose us. And that taught me more about love than she ever could have." The song ended. People applauded. Riley hugged me tight one more time before Theo claimed her for the next dance. I sat down at my table and Mason slid a beer across to me. "Not bad, old man," he said. "Which part?" "All of it." He clinked his bottle against mine. "Thanks for not giving up on us." "Thanks for not making it easy," I replied, and he laughed. Later that night, after Riley and Theo had left in a shower of birdseed and good wishes, I helped Mason and some friends clean up the venue. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I saw the photos on Facebook. "I hope you're happy with what you've created. A family built on lies and manipulation. Those kids will figure out eventually that you stole them from me." I stared at the message for a long moment, then showed it to Mason. He read it and shook his head. "Is she for real?" "Unfortunately." "Are you going to respond?" I thought about it. About all the things I could say. About 6 years of birthdays and holidays and ordinary Tuesdays. About braiding hair and teaching parallel parking and building a deck together. About becoming a family not through genetics but through showing up, day after day after day. Instead, I deleted the message and blocked the number. "Nope," I said. "She's not worth the energy." Mason grinned. That's pretty much what Riley said when she blocked her last month. We finished cleaning in comfortable silence. On the drive home, I thought about what Riley had said during the ceremony, about dreams and expectations, and the difference between the parent you're supposed to have and the parent you actually get. The house was quiet when we got back. Strange after months of wedding planning chaos. Mason headed to his room but paused at the stairs. "Hey, Dad?" "Yeah?" When I get married someday, and I'm not saying it's happening anytime soon, but when I do, I want you to be my best man. My chest got tight again. I'd be honored. He nodded and disappeared upstairs. I sat in the living room for a while, looking at the photos on the walls. Riley and Mason at various ages, various milestones. The three of us on that deck we'd built. Christmas mornings and birthday parties and random Tuesday dinners. My phone buzzed again, this time from Riley. Made it to the hotel. Theo's already asleep, but I wanted to say thank you for everything, for choosing us when you didn't have to, for being the dad I needed, even when I didn't know how to ask for one. I love you. I typed back. Love you too. Now get some rest. You've got a honeymoon to start tomorrow. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. One more thing. Mason and I were talking last week, and we want to make it official. We want to legally change our last name to yours. We should have done it years ago. I had to read that message 3 times before it sank in. You don't have to do that, I typed back. We know. We want to. You gave us a family when ours fell apart. We want the same name as the man who actually raised us. I sat there in my living room. In the house I'd learned to maintain through YouTube videos and trial and error. In the home we'd built together from broken pieces. And I cried. Not sad tears. Not happy tears exactly. Just the overwhelming gratitude of someone who'd stumbled into something beautiful by accident and somehow managed not to completely screw it up. 2 months later, I stood in a courthouse with Riley and Mason. The judge was the same one who'd dismissed Veronica's custody case, a stern woman with kind eyes who'd seen too many families torn apart. This is unusual, she said, looking at the paperwork. Adult adoptions are rare, and you're already their legal guardian. We know, Riley said, but we want it official. We want the same last name. We want him to legally be our father. The judge looked at me. And you're willing to take on this responsibility, even though they're adults now? I took on the responsibility 6 years ago, I said. This just makes it official. She smiled. Then I see no reason to deny the petition. Congratulations on your new family. The paperwork was signed. The documents were filed. And just like that, Riley Chen and Mason Chen became Riley Mitchell and Mason Mitchell. We went out for celebratory dinner at the diner where I'd taken them dozens of times over the years. The same one where Mason had told me about making varsity soccer, where Riley had cried about her first breakup, where we'd planned college visits and celebrated acceptance letters and just existed as a family. The waitress knew us by name. She brought Mason's usual order without asking. Celebrating something? She asked, noticing the champagne I'd ordered. New names, Mason said, grinning. Official family. She looked confused for a second, then her face cleared. Oh, you finally made it legal. Honey, I've been calling you his kids for years anyway. After dinner, we drove past our old house, the one Veronica had bought when the twins were babies. New people lived there now. Different curtains in the windows, different cars in the driveway. You ever miss it? Mason asked. Sometimes, Riley admitted, but only the idea of it. The actual memories are pretty complicated. Our house is better anyway, Mason said. Dad actually fixed the leaky sink instead of just putting a bucket under it. I laughed. That's a low bar. You'd be surprised how many people don't clear it, Riley said quietly. We drove home in comfortable silence. When we pulled into the driveway, I noticed something different about the mailbox. Someone had painted our last name on it, all 3 of our names together. When did you do this? I asked Mason. Yesterday. Figured it was time. Inside, Riley had hung a new photo on the wall. From the wedding, the 3 of us together. Below it, she'd added a simple frame with a quote. Family isn't always blood. It's the people in your life who want you in theirs. The ones who accept you for who you are. The ones who would do anything to see you smile and who love you no matter what. 6 years ago, my wife walked out and told me I'd never manage alone with her kids. She was right about one thing. I didn't manage alone. I managed with Riley and Mason, and together we built something stronger than the family that fell apart. We built a family based on choice instead of obligation, on showing up instead of genetics, on love that had to be earned and proven every single day. And yeah, there were hard days. Days when Riley still struggled with feeling abandoned. Days when Mason got angry about things he couldn't control. Days when I second-guessed every parenting decision I'd ever made. But there were also Friday night pizzas and terrible horror movies, Sunday morning pancakes with too much syrup, inside jokes and shared looks and the comfortable silence of people who actually know each other. Last week, Riley called with news. She's pregnant. Due in 6 months. I'm terrified, she admitted. What if I'm like her? What if I can't do it? You know what I think, I said. I think you're going to be an amazing mother. Because you know exactly what it looks like when a parent shows up, and you know exactly what it costs when they don't. Will you help me? Her voice was small, vulnerable in a way she rarely let herself be. With the baby stuff, I know Theo's mom will want to be involved, but I want my dad there too. I'll be there, I promised. For every doctor's appointment you want me at, every 2 a.m. panic call, every milestone, I'm not going anywhere. I know, she said. That's why I'm not actually that scared. Mason called an hour later with his own news. He'd been offered a coaching position at a high school 3 towns over. His first real job after college. It doesn't pay much, he admitted, but I'd be working with kids who need someone to believe in them. Kids like we were. You should take it, I said. Yeah? You know what it looks like when someone shows up? Those kids are lucky to get you. I learned from the best, he said, and I heard the smile in his voice. That night, I sat on the deck we'd built together and thought about the strange path my life had taken. I'd married a woman who'd walked away from her own children. I'd become a father to kids who weren't biologically mine. I'd learned to braid hair and navigate teenage drama and help with college applications, all while pretending I knew what I was doing. And somehow, against all odds, we'd made it work. My phone buzzed with a message from Riley, a sonogram photo. Your first grandchild, it read. Baby Mitchell, arriving September. I stared at that image, that tiny blob of potential, and felt the same overwhelming responsibility I'd felt 6 years ago when Veronica walked out. This time, though, I wasn't scared, because I'd already learned the most important lesson about family. It's not about being perfect. It's about showing up, about choosing people every day, even when it's hard, about building something together from whatever broken pieces you're given. Mason texted, "I assume you saw Riley's news. We're going to have to baby-proof that deck." I laughed and typed back, "We'll handle it, together." And we would. Because that's what families do. Real families. The ones built on choice and commitment and showing up day after day after day. Veronica had been wrong about a lot of things, but she was especially wrong about one thing. I didn't just manage with her kids alone. I thrived. We all did. And in the end, that was the greatest revenge. Not bitterness or anger, but building something beautiful from the pieces she'd left behind. Creating a family so strong, so real, that her absence became irrelevant. Proving that showing up matters more than sharing DNA. The mail arrived the next day with official documents, the adoption papers now sealed and filed. Riley Mitchell, Mason Mitchell, my daughter, my son. Not because biology said so, because we all chose it, and that made all the difference.